The Intergalactic Ark New Dawn carved a silent path through the vast emptiness of space, a colossal city ship that housed thousands of beings from every corner of the galaxy. Its gleaming corridors, lined with polished titanium and glowing blue panels, pulsed with the faint hum of fusion engines, a reminder of the vessel's relentless journey. The Ark was a marvel, a floating diplomatic hub where humans mingled with Zakari, their insectoid limbs clicking softly, and Valorians, whose melodic voices echoed like distant chimes. Biodomes on the upper decks bloomed with alien flora, while gravity modulators kept the air steady for species of all kinds. Yet beneath the harmony lay tension, a fragile balance between cooperation and suspicion that defined galactic life. Captain Ethan Caldwell navigated this chaos with the sharp focus of a hunter. At 32, he was one of the Ark's most trusted security officers, his broad shoulders filling out his dark tactical uniform, the Silver Alliance badge glinting on his chest. His brown eyes scanned every detail, the flicker of a holo display, the shuffle of a crew member's boots, the faint whiff of contraband spice pods hidden in a cargo crate. Ethan's nose was his secret weapon, honed by years of training to detect what others missed. Smells told stories, and he'd sniffed out smugglers, spies, and saboteurs more times than he could count. But today, it wasn't contraband that set his senses on edge. It was her. Kalara, an exile from the distant planet Clithia, had caught his attention 3 weeks ago in the ship's central atrium. The atrium was a bustling hub, a kaleidoscope of species bartering goods, sharing meals, and trading gossip. Kalara stood out, not just for her striking appearance. Indigo skin that shimmered like liquid sapphire, moon-white hair cascading over her shoulders, but for the way she moved. Her steps were too graceful, her posture too poised for the rough-and-tumble life of a Clithian exile. Ethan had seen refugees before, their eyes hollow with loss, their bodies tense with survival. Kalara was different. She carried herself like royalty, her gaze sharp and guarded, as if she were hiding a secret bigger than the stars outside. He'd watched her that day, blending into the crowd as she negotiated with a Valorian merchant over a crate of protein rations. Her voice was calm, her gestures precise, defusing the merchant's agitation with a diplomat's ease. Ethan's nose twitched, catching a faint floral scent, intoxicating, rare, and utterly out of place in the atrium's mix of sweat and engine grease. It lingered in his mind, a puzzle he couldn't solve. His suspicion deepened during a briefing in the command center that morning. The room buzzed with officers, their holo displays projecting star charts and supply logs for the Ark's next diplomatic stop at Solara Vantage Station. Ethan stood near the back, his arms crossed, scanning the crowd as Commander Torenvax droned on about protocol. Kalara sat quietly, her role as a low-level translator keeping her out of the spotlight. She lifted a glass of water to her lips, using both hands in a delicate, almost ceremonial gesture. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He'd seen that move before in old holovids about the royal courts of Eryndor, a planet famed for its climate technology, now rumored to be crumbling under environmental collapse. Eryndor. The name sparked a memory, a briefing from years ago about a world on the edge, its artificial atmosphere failing, its people desperate. Ethan's jaw tightened. Kalara's scent, her grace, her too-perfect poise, it didn't add up. Clithian exiles didn't smell like flowers or move like queens. He needed answers. As the briefing ended, Ethan followed Kalara into the corridor, keeping his distance. She moved swiftly, her black jumpsuit blending into the crowd, but that floral scent trailed behind her, sharp and unmistakable. He caught up as she passed a maintenance alcove, the corridor quiet except for the hum of the ship. "Kalara," he called, his voice low but firm. She froze, her shoulders tensing, then turned to face him. Her blue eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light, met his with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Captain Caldwell," she said, her voice smooth, betraying nothing. "What do you want?" Ethan stepped closer, his boots echoing on the metal floor. "That scent you're wearing," he said, his tone measured. It's not something an exile from Clithia would have, is it? He paused, watching her reaction. Asterisk Astra Valaris star. Grown only in the royal highlands of Eryndor. Care to explain, Princess Kalara? Her eyes widened, a flicker of panic breaking her composure. For a moment, she looked like a cornered animal, her indigo skin catching the flickering light overhead. Then, a sly smile curved her lips, and she stepped closer, her voice dropping to a velvet whisper. You're clever, Captain. Maybe too clever. She tilted her head, her white hair shimmering. Come to my quarters. We could share a shower and keep this between us. Ethan's pulse quickened, not at her offer, but at the desperation behind it. He crossed his arms, his expression hard. I don't play games, Kalara. I want the truth. Now, her smile faded, and something shifted in her gaze. Resignation, maybe, or resolve. She glanced down the corridor, ensuring they were alone, then leaned in. My room, 1 hour, she whispered. I'll tell you everything. Before he could respond, she slipped into the shadows, her scent lingering like a promise. Ethan stood there, his mind racing. He'd confronted spies before, but this felt different. Kalara wasn't just hiding her identity. She was carrying a secret that could shake the Arkansas. He thought back to a mission 5 years ago, when the Alliance ordered him to abandon a colony on Praxis 4. The distress calls still haunted him. Families begging for rescue as their air recyclers failed, and Ethan, bound by orders, could only watch their signals fade. The Alliance's cold pragmatism had cost him a friend, Lieutenant Mara Cole, and his faith in their ideals. If Kalara was Eryndorian royalty, her presence here meant trouble he couldn't ignore. He headed to the archive vault to confirm his suspicions. The vault, a cavernous chamber deep in the ship's core, housed data drives and preserved samples from countless worlds. Ethan swiped his clearance badge, the heavy doors hissing open. Inside, rows of glowing racks hummed with information, their faint heat warming the air. He navigated to the Eryndorian section, his fingers tracing labels until he found it. A sealed vial marked Astra Valaris. He uncapped it, inhaling deeply. The scent hit him like a wave, floral, sharp, and identical to Kalara's. His heart sank. No exile carried that fragrance. Only a princess would. A noise startled him. A junior officer, Ensign Patel, entering the vault with a datapad. Captain Caldwell, Patel said, frowning. Didn't expect you here. Ethan's hand closed around the vial, slipping it back onto the shelf. Routine check, he lied, his voice steady. Carry on. Patel nodded, but his eyes lingered suspicious. Ethan cursed inwardly. He'd have to move fast before word spread. As he left the vault, he caught sight of Lieutenant Celine Dre across the corridor, her sharp gaze fixed on him. Celine was a rising star in security, her loyalty to the Alliance unwavering and her ambition razor-sharp. She'd been watching him lately, her cold green eyes tracking his every move. Ethan didn't trust her. Whispers among the crew spoke of a secretive group, the Coalition for Galactic Purity, who opposed alien integration on the Arkansas. If Celine was involved, she'd be trouble. He pushed the thought aside and headed for Kalara's quarters. Whatever her secret, he'd uncover it tonight and decide whether to expose her or protect her. The choice felt heavier than the ship itself, and as the Astra Valaris scent lingered in his memory, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. Ethan stepped into Kalara's quarters, the heavy door sliding shut behind him with a soft hiss. The room was small, standard for a low-level translator on the Intergalactic Ark New Dawn, but it felt anything but ordinary. Bare metal walls gleamed under a flickering light panel, casting stark shadows across a single cot and a narrow desk. Hidden in the corner, a faint blue glow pulsed from a concealed compartment, hinting at tech she didn't want found. The air was thick with the scent of Astra Valaris, that rare floral aroma Ethan had traced to Eryndor's royal highlands. It was stronger here, almost overwhelming, wrapping around him like a memory he couldn't place. Kalara stood by the cot, her indigo skin catching the dim light, her moon-white hair loose and shimmering. Her blue eyes, glowing faintly, met his with a mix of defiance and vulnerability. She gestured to the cot, but Ethan stayed by the door, arms crossed, his dark eyes locked on her. "Talk," he said, his voice clipped. "No more games, Kalara. Who are you, really?" She sat on the edge of the cot, her hands clenching into fists. For a moment, she looked small, almost fragile, but her gaze burned with resolve. "You're right," she said, her voice steady but heavy with weight. "I'm Kalara, Princess of Eryndor, the last of the House of Alaris." Ethan didn't flinch, but his mind raced. Eryndor, a planet renowned for its climate technology, its artificial atmosphere a marvel that had sustained billions for centuries. Now, rumors swirled of its collapse, its skies choked with storms, its people facing extinction. "Go on," he said, leaning against the wall, his tone neutral but his heart pounding. Kalara took a deep breath, her fingers tracing the edge of the cot. "Eryndor is dying. Our climate network, the satellites, the atmospheric stabilizers, it's failing. The storms are growing worse every day. In months, maybe weeks, the system will collapse entirely. 20 billion people will die." Her voice cracked, just for a second before she steadied it. "The Alliance knows. They offered to evacuate 100,000 of us. 100,000 out of billions. It's a cruel joke." Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd seen the Alliance's priorities before: profit over lives, power over mercy. 5 years ago, on Praxis 4, he'd been ordered to abandon a colony of 10,000 when their air recyclers failed. He could still hear Lieutenant Mara Cole's voice over the comms, pleading for rescue as he powered down the shuttle, bound by orders. Mara didn't make it. The memory burned, fueling his distrust. "Why so few?" he asked, his voice low. "The Alliance has the resources." Kalara's laugh was bitter, sharp as a blade. "Oh, they have the resources. Satellites, supercomputers, core stabilization tech that could rebuild our network and save everyone. But they won't share it. Eryndor's their rival in climate technology. They want our planet to crash and burn so that they can dominate the galactic market. The evacuation? It's a ploy to cherry-pick our scientists, steal our secrets, and leave the rest to die." Ethan's stomach twisted. He'd served the Alliance for a decade, sworn an oath to protect its ideals. But he'd seen their greed too many times. Colonies abandoned, worlds exploited for profit. Still, he kept his face neutral, his training holding firm. "So you ran," he said, "pretended to be an exile from Clithia." "What?" Kalara stood, pacing the tiny room, her movements fluid despite the tension. "I didn't run. I chose to come here, to infiltrate the Alliance. That tech they're hiding? I'm going to steal it. I'll do whatever it takes to save my people." Her eyes met his, fierce and unyielding. "That's the truth, Ethan. Now you know." The room fell silent, the hum of the ship's engines filling the void. Ethan studied her, the fire in her gaze, the slight tremble in her hands. She wasn't lying. Her words carried the weight of desperation, of duty, of a princess willing to risk everything. But helping her meant betraying the Alliance, risking his career, maybe his life. He thought of his oath, the silver badge on his chest. Then he thought of Mara, her voice fading into static, and 20 billion souls left to choke on Eryndor storms. He pushed off the wall, his mind flashing to a moment 10 years ago, when he'd been a young officer full of ideals. He'd stood on a training deck, swearing to protect life, not politics. That Ethan would have helped Kalara, without hesitation. But the man he'd become was scarred, cautious, burned by the Alliance's cold calculations. "You're asking me to commit treason," he said, his voice low. "I'm asking you to save billions," Kalara countered, stepping closer. The Astra Valaris scent grew stronger, mingling with her intensity. "You've seen what the Alliance does, Ethan. You know they're not the heroes they claim to be." He held her gaze, searching for deception, but finding only sincerity. "There's something else," he said, his nose catching a new note in her scent, something deeper, almost primal. "That smell, it's not just a flower, is it? There's more to you." Kalara hesitated, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. "You're perceptive," she said softly. "The Astra Valaris isn't just a flower. It's part of our royal lineage. Our DNA, it's adaptive. It evolves to bond with other species, to forge alliances, even biologically. It's why we cultivate the flower. It mirrors our blood, our purpose. I carry that trait, stronger than most. Ethan's brow furrowed. Bond? You mean diplomacy, trade, and sometimes more, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's how Eryndor survived centuries of isolation, connecting with other worlds. My blood could be the key to saving my people, not just through tech, but through unity. She paused, her eyes searching his. That's why I'm here, Ethan. Not just for the tech, but to build a bridge. The weight of her words settled over him. A princess with adaptive DNA, hiding on a ship full of spies and soldiers. It was a lot to process, and his instincts screamed caution. I need more than your word, he said finally. If I'm going to help you, I need proof. Someone who can back your story. Kalara nodded, as if expecting this. There's someone on the Ark who knows who I am. Dr. Alara Voss, a xenobiologist in the science wing. She studied Eryndor's culture, its tech. She lost her sister to a planetary collapse years ago. She understands what's at stake. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Why hasn't she turned you in? Because she believes in saving lives, not playing politics, Kalara said. But she's cautious. If you approach her, be careful. The wrong move could expose us both. Ethan's mind churned. Dr. Voss was a respected scientist, but her name had come up in reports linked to unauthorized data transfers. If she was hiding Kalara's secret, she was already taking risks. I'll talk to her, he said. But if this is a setup, Kalara, I'll drag you to Commander Vax myself. She smiled faintly, a mix of relief and defiance. Fair enough. But you'll see, Ethan. My people are running out of time. He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. One more thing, she said, stepping closer. There are factions on Eryndor, purists we call them. They'd rather let our world die than accept Alliance help. They think it'll cost us our soul. If they find out I'm here, they'll try to stop me. And they have allies on this ship. Ethan froze. Allies? Like who? I don't know yet, she admitted. But the Coalition for Galactic Purity. I've heard whispers. They don't want aliens like me integrating, let alone leading. Watch your back, Ethan. The warning sent a chill down his spine. He thought of Lieutenant Celine Dre, her cold eyes tracking him in the corridor. If the Coalition was involved, this was bigger than one princess. I always do, he said, his voice hard. I'll find Voss. If she checks out, we'll talk about next steps. Stay low until then. Kalara nodded, her eyes holding his for a moment longer. No more secrets, she said, echoing his earlier demand. But as Ethan stepped into the corridor, the door sliding shut behind him, he couldn't shake the feeling that more secrets were waiting. On the Ark, on Eryndor, and maybe even in Kalara herself. He headed for the science wing, his boots echoing in the quiet corridor. The Astra Valaris scent lingered in his senses, a reminder of the woman who just turned his world upside down. Helping her meant risking everything, his career, his freedom, maybe his life. But as he thought of Praxis 4, of Mara's voice fading into silence, he knew he couldn't walk away. Not yet. Ethan crouched in the shadowed corner of Dr. Alara Voss's hidden lab, the air thick with the hum of machinery and the faint tang of ionized circuits. The lab, tucked deep in the Intergalactic Ark New Dawn science wing, was a cluttered maze of hollow displays, sample vats, and blinking consoles. Kalara stood beside him, her indigo skin faintly luminous under the dim lights, her moon-white hair pulled back to reveal the tension in her jaw. The Astra Valaris scent clung to her, sharp and floral, a reminder of the stakes they faced. Across the room, Dr. Voss hunched over a terminal, her fingers flying across the interface as she finalized the decryption key for the archive vault. You're sure this will work? Ethan asked, his voice low, his brown eyes scanning the lab's entrance. The weight of Kalara's confession, her royal identity, Eryndor's dying atmosphere, her adaptive DNA still pressed on him, but he'd made his choice. Helping her meant stealing Alliance tech, a line he'd never crossed. His pulse thrummed with equal parts adrenaline and doubt. Voss glanced up, her gray eyes sharp behind her glasses. "It'll work," she said, her tone clipped but steady. "The key bypasses the vault's biometric locks, but you'll have seconds to grab the drive before the AI drones activate." She hesitated, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. "Celine Dre's been sniffing around my lab. She knows something's off. If she catches you, we're all done." Ethan's jaw tightened. Lieutenant Celine Dre's cold gaze had haunted him since the briefing, her loyalty to the Coalition for Galactic Purity a growing threat. The Coalition's whispers, anti-alien rhetoric, calls to purge the Ark of outsiders, had spread like a virus among the crew. If Celine was onto them, time was shorter than he'd hoped. Kalara adjusted the encoder strapped to her wrist, its faint green glow pulsing in sync with her movements. "We'll be in and out before she notices," she said, her voice calm but edged with urgency. "The drive holds the stabilization algorithms Eryndor needs. We get it, I signal my mother, and we're one step closer to saving my people." Ethan nodded, but his mind flashed to Praxis 4, the colony he'd abandoned under Alliance orders. The guilt still gnawed at him, and the thought of failing Kalara, of leaving billions to die, felt too familiar. "Let's move," he said, checking his tactical belt. A pulse pistol, a hollow jammer, and a micro toolkit for emergencies. "Voss, you're our eyes. Keep the cameras looped." Voss gave a curt nod, her fingers already tapping commands. "I've got you for 10 minutes max. After that, the system's AI will notice the glitch. Don't screw this up." The plan was simple but razor-thin. Ethan would trigger a ship-wide distraction, a false hull breach alert, to pull security away from the vault. Kalara would use her encoder to disable the vault's sensors, while Voss hacked the cameras to cover their tracks. Once inside, they'd grab the drive and escape to the officer's emergency room to send Kalara's signal to Queen Lysara. Simple, but one mistake could end them. They slipped out of the lab, moving silently through the Ark's lower decks. The corridors were a labyrinth of pipes and flickering panels, the air heavy with the hum of engines. Ethan led the way, his heightened senses picking up the faint scent of coolant and the distant clatter of crew boots. Kalara followed, her steps light but purposeful, her encoder glowing softly. The vault was 3 decks down, guarded by biometric locks, infrared grids, and AI drones that could shred intruders in seconds. At a junction, Ethan knelt by a terminal, his micro toolkit humming as he spliced into the ship's alert system. "Ready?" he whispered, glancing at Kalara. She nodded, her blue eyes steady. "Do it." He triggered the alert. A piercing klaxon blared through the ship, red lights flashing as the intercom crackled. "Hull breach, Deck 7. All security to emergency stations." Boots thundered in the distance as guards scrambled, but Ethan's gut twisted. Celine was too sharp to fall for this. She'd be watching. They reached the vault, a massive steel door etched with Alliance insignias, its control panel glowing red. Kalara knelt, her encoder syncing with the sensors, her fingers moving with practiced precision. "Almost there," she muttered, sweat beading on her indigo brow. The Astra Valaris sense sharpened, a sign of her focus. Ethan kept watch, his pulse pistol drawn, his nose catching a faint whiff of something new. Ozone, sharp and unnatural. "Hurry," he said, his voice tense. "Something's off." The panel beeped, and the door hissed open, revealing a chamber lined with glowing data drives. But before Kalara could step inside, her encoder sparked, its green glow flickering. "No, no, no," she hissed, ripping open the device's casing. A wire had frayed, sabotaged. Someone tampered with this. Ethan's blood ran cold. "Coalition," he growled. "We got seconds." Kalara's hands moved faster, rewiring the encoder with a skill that surprised him. "Got it," she said, the device stabilizing. She disabled the infrared grid, and they slipped inside, the vault's cold air hitting them like a wave. Rows of drives hummed, each labeled with cryptic codes. Ethan spotted their target, a small, silver drive marked Stabilization Core 7. He grabbed it, tucking it into his belt, but a low whine filled the air. "Drones! Move!" he shouted, shoving Kalara toward the exit as 4 AI drones activated, their red optics glowing. Laser pulses scorched the air, one grazing Ethan's shoulder, the pain sharp but bearable. Kalara fired her own pistol, a sleek Eryndorian model, taking out a drone in a shower of sparks. They dove through the closing door, the vault ceiling behind them. But the corridor wasn't safe. Celine Dre stood at the far end, her pulse rifle raised, her green eyes cold as ice. "Caldwell," she barked. "Drop the drive or I shoot." Ethan's heart pounded, but he stepped in front of Kalara, shielding her. "Your coalition, aren't you?" he said, stalling. "This isn't about duty. It's about keeping aliens like her off the Arkansas." Celine's lips curled into a sneer. "You're betraying your own kind for a blue-skinned princess. Pathetic." She fired, the pulse scorching the wall as Ethan and Kalara dove into a side tunnel. The maintenance tunnels were a claustrophobic maze, pipes hissing with steam, lights flickering erratically. Ethan led the way, his shoulder throbbing, Kalara close behind. "Voss, we're compromised," he hissed into his comm. "Celine's on us." Voss's voice crackled back, strained. "I'm looping the cameras, but my signal's being traced. You've got minutes before security locks the ship down." They sprinted through the tunnels, the drive heavy in Ethan's belt. A coalition agent, a wiry man with a scarred face, emerged from a side passage, swinging a shock baton. Ethan tackled him, the baton grazing his arm, sending a jolt through his nerves. Kalara fired, stunning the agent, her breath ragged but her aim true. "You okay?" she asked, her eyes wide with worry. "I'll live," Ethan grunted, hauling her forward. Her concern, genuine and unguarded, hit him harder than the baton. They were in this together now, no turning back. The tunnel shook as the ship's lockdown began, blast doors slamming shut. Kalara's comm beeped. She'd rigged a signal to Queen Lysara, but it was intercepted, triggering alarms. "They know we're here," she said, her voice tight. "We need to send the signal now." Ethan spotted a service hatch leading to the officer's emergency room. "There," he said, prying it open. They crawled through, emerging in a cramped chamber with a single console and a reinforced door. Kalara plugged the drive into the console, her fingers trembling as she sent the signal. "Mother, it's done," she whispered, her voice breaking. "We have the tech." Voss's voice cut through the comm, security's closing in. "I've burned my clearance to delay them, but you're on your own now." Her tone was grim. She'd risked everything. Ethan checked the console, his nose catching a faint metallic scent. He tore open a panel, finding a tiny tracker blinking red. "Coalition," he cursed, crushing it under his boot. "They've been one step ahead." Kalara grabbed his arm, her touch steadying him. "We got the drive. We sent the signal. That's what matters." Her blue eyes held his, fierce and grateful, the Astra Valaris scent mingling with the room's metallic tang. For a moment, the chaos faded, and it was just them, two people defying the odds. Ethan's shoulder burned, his arm numb, but he nodded. "We're not done yet. Celine's still out there, and the coalition won't stop." He locked the emergency room's door, the thud echoing like a final stand. "We hold here until Voss confirms the signal reached Eryndor." Kalara leaned against the console, her breath steadying. "You took a hit for me," she said softly, her gaze tracing the scorch mark on his shoulder. "What?" He met her eyes, the weight of praxis for heavy in his chest. "I've lost too many people to the Alliance's games. I'm not losing you." The words came out raw, unguarded, and he saw something shift in her expression. Trust, maybe, or something deeper. The alarms blared louder, footsteps pounding outside. Celine and her team were close, and the coalition's shadow loomed larger than ever. But as Ethan stood beside Kalara, the drive secure, the signal sent, he felt a spark of hope. They'd stolen more than tech. They'd stolen a chance for Eryndor, and maybe for themselves. The officer's emergency room was a stifling cage, its walls dented and scorched from years of wear. The air heavy with the metallic tang of recycled oxygen and the faint hum of the Intergalactic Ark New Dawn engines. Flickering lights cast jagged shadows across the cramped space, illuminating a single console where the stolen drive sat, its silver casing glinting like a hard-won prize. Ethan leaned against the locked door, his shoulder throbbing from the laser graze he'd taken protecting Kalara, his pulse pistol still warm in his hand. The alarms outside had quieted, but the pounding of security boots echoed closer, a reminder that Celine Dre and her coalition allies were hunting them. Kalara stood by the console, her indigo skin glistening with sweat, her moon-white hair loose and tangled from their sprint through the tunnels. The Astra Valaris scent clung to her, sharper now, weaving through the room's stale air like a thread of hope. Her blue eyes, glowing faintly, met Ethan's, and for a moment, the chaos faded. They'd done the impossible, stolen the drive, sent the signal to Queen Lysara, but the weight of what came next pressed down on them both. "You're hurt," Kalara said, her voice soft but firm, stepping closer. Her fingers hovered near the scorch mark on his shoulder, hesitating. "You didn't have to take that hit for me." Ethan's jaw tightened, the pain in his shoulder a dull ache compared to the memories it stirred. "I wasn't thinking," he said, his voice rough. "Just didn't want to lose you." The admission slipped out, raw and unguarded, and he saw her eyes soften, a flicker of something deeper passing between them. She turned away, her hands gripping the console's edge, her shoulders tense. "I've been trained to lead, to sacrifice everything for Eryndor," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But standing here with you, I'm terrified I'll fail them, that I'll lose myself in this fight." Ethan stepped closer, the Astra Valaris scent wrapping around him, grounding him. He knew that fear, had felt on Praxis 4, watching a colony die because he followed orders. "You won't fail," he said, his voice steady. "You've already done more than anyone could ask. You got the drive. You sent the signal. That's not failure." Kalara's laugh was soft, bitter. "It's not enough. Not yet." She turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "You don't know what it's like, Ethan, to carry the weight of billions. To know every choice I make could end them, or end me." He held her gaze, the room's heat pressing against them. "I know what it's like to lose people," he said, his voice low, the words heavy with memory. "Praxis 4, I left 10,000 behind. Families, friends, my friend Mara. The Alliance called it strategic necessity. I called it betrayal. I've carried that every day since." He paused, his throat tight. "I don't want to carry losing you two." Her breath caught, and for a moment, they stood frozen, the space between them charged with unspoken truths. The Astra Valaris scent grew stronger, mingling with the metallic air, amplifying the intimacy of the moment. Kalara's hand reached out, brushing his uninjured arm, her touch light but electric. "You're not what I expected," she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "A human, risking everything for someone like me. Someone like you?" Ethan raised an eyebrow, a spark of humor breaking through his tension. "You mean a stubborn princess who rewires tech under fire and smells like flowers?" Her smile widened, but it faded as her eyes grew serious. "There's something I haven't told you," she said, her voice dropping. "About my DNA. The adaptive trait I mentioned, it's not just for diplomacy or alliances. It's deeper. My blood can bond with other species, create life where none should exist. It's how Eryndor forged peace with worlds we could have fought. If we—" She hesitated, her cheeks darkening. "If I were with someone, a human like you, we could have a child. A hybrid. A symbol of unity." Ethan's heart skipped, her words hitting like a shockwave. A child. The idea was overwhelming, stirring a mix of awe and fear. He'd never thought of fatherhood. His life was the Alliance, the Ark, the next mission. His own childhood had been unstable, shuffled between outposts, never rooted. "A child," he repeated, his voice hoarse. "You're saying we could?" "Not now," Kalara said quickly, her hand tightening on his arm. "But it's possible. My DNA would adapt, ensure compatibility. It's why the Coalition fears me. A hybrid child would threaten their whole purity nonsense. It's why they're pushing to deport me, to stop any chance of it." Ethan's mind raced, the implications sinking in. A child born of human and Eryndorian blood, a living bridge between worlds. It was beautiful, terrifying, and far bigger than the drive they'd stolen. He thought of the coalition, of Celine's cold eyes, and the tracker he'd crushed. They'd never let it happen, he said, his voice grim. They'd come for you. For us. Then we fight, Kalara said, her voice fierce, her eyes blazing. For Eryndor, for hope, for whatever future we could have. She stepped closer, their faces inches apart, the Astra Valaris scent enveloping them. I didn't expect to feel this, Ethan. Not for you. But I do. Her words broke something in him, a wall he'd built since Praxis 4. He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek, her indigo skin warm under his touch. I didn't expect you either, he said, his voice raw. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. She leaned into his touch, her eyes closing for a moment, then opened them, her gaze steady. Even if it costs you everything. He thought of his badge, his oath, the Alliance's cold pragmatism. Then he thought of her courage, her vulnerability, the way she'd fought beside him in the tunnels. Some things are worth it, he said, and before he could second-guess himself, he kissed her. The kiss was slow, deliberate, a culmination of trust forged in danger. Her lips were soft, tasting faintly of Astra Valaris, and her hands slid to his shoulders, careful of his wound. The world narrowed to just them. The heat of the room, the hum of the ship, the spark of something new. It wasn't just attraction. It was respect, shared pain, a promise to face the storm together. A sharp crackle broke the moment. Voss's voice over the comm, Ethan, Kalara, out of time, she hissed, her tone frantic. Celine's got a team outside your door. The Coalition's pushing for Kalara's deportation, claiming she's a threat to the Arkansas. I'm doing what I can, but you need to move. Ethan pulled back, his forehead resting against Kalara's, their breaths mingling. They're not taking you, he said, his voice fierce. Not while I'm here. Kalara's hand lingered on his chest, her eyes steady. Then we faced them together. But there's something else. She hesitated, her voice dropping. If the Coalition wins, if they deport me, I'll lose more than my mission. I'll lose who I am. Eryndor's princess. It's hope. I just be a symbol, a pawn. I'm scared, Ethan. Scared of losing myself. He gripped her hand, his resolve hardening. You're not a pawn. You're Kalara, and I'll fight to keep you whole. The words were a vow, binding them closer than the kiss. The door shuddered, a heavy thud signaling Celine's team trying to breach it. Ethan checked his pistol, his shoulder screaming, but his focus sharp. Voss, any chance you could buy us more time? He asked into the comm. I'm trying, Voss replied, her voice strained. I've rerouted security to a false alarm, but Celine's not buying it. She's got Coalition backing, high level. Be ready. Kalara grabbed the drive, tucking it into her jumpsuit. If they get this, Eryndor's done, she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. We protect it no matter what. Ethan nodded, his mind racing. The emergency room was a dead end, but the console could still send a backup signal to Lysara, ensuring the text data reached Eryndor. He moved to the console, his fingers flying across the controls, while Kalara stood guard, her Eryndorian pistol ready. The Astra Valaris scent lingered, a reminder of what they were fighting for. Not just a planet, but a future, maybe even a family. The door groaned, sparks flying as Celine's team burned through the lock. Ethan's heart pounded, but Kalara's presence steadied him. They'd stolen the drive, survived the tunnels, and found something worth more than tech. Whatever came next, they'd face it together, bound by trust, by hope, by a kiss that promised more than either could say. The emergency room's air was thick, the metallic tang of the Intergalactic Ark New Dawn systems mingling with the faint, persistent Astra Valaris scent that clung to Kalara. The stolen drive sat on the console, its silver casing catching the flickering light, a silent testament to the risks they'd taken. Ethan stood by the reinforced door, his pulse pistol ready, his shoulder still aching from the laser graze. The thud of security boots outside had slowed, but Celine Dre's team was close, their blowtorches sparking against the lock. Kalara leaned against the console, her indigo skin glistening with sweat, her blue eyes sharp with determination despite the exhaustion etching her face. A low hum broke the tension as the console flickered to life, projecting a hologram of Commander Tornvax. His weathered face, framed by a crisp Alliance uniform, appeared calm but calculating, his gray eyes locking onto them. "Captain Caldwell, Princess Kalara," he said, his voice smooth, carrying the weight of authority. "You've caused quite a stir." Ethan's grip tightened on his pistol, his instincts screaming trap. "You knew who she was," he said, his voice low, accusatory. "From the start." Vax's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "Of course. The Alliance tracks every passenger on this ship, especially one with royal credentials. I'll let you play your game, Kalara, because it served our interests. But the game ends now." Kalara stepped forward, her posture regal despite her disheveled state. "Then stop playing games, Commander," she said, her voice cutting. "You have the tech to save my people. Why hold it back?" Vax's hologram flickered, his expression unreadable. "The Alliance has its reasons. Eryndor's climate technology competes with our markets. Weakening your position strengthens ours. But I'm not here to gloat. I'm here to offer a deal." He leaned forward, his voice softening. "Surrender the drive. In return, we'll evacuate 10 billion of your people, grant you full diplomatic status, and fund a cultural preservation program to protect Eryndor's heritage. Your planet survives, your legacy endures." Ethan's stomach churned. 10 billion was a fortune, but it left 10 billion more to die. The Alliance's pragmatism reeked of the same cold calculus that had doomed Praxis 4. He glanced at Kalara, her face a mask of controlled fury, the Astra Valaris scent sharpening with her emotions. "And if we refuse?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with defiance. Vax's eyes narrowed. "You'll be arrested, the drive confiscated, and Eryndor gets nothing. The Coalition for Galactic Purity is already lobbying to deport you, Kalara. They've got allies in high places. Refuse, and you lose everything." Before they could respond, the console beeped, a secure channel overriding Vax's signal. Dr. Alara Voss's face appeared, her glasses askew, her expression grim. "Ethan, Kalara, listen fast," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "Celine just sent a message to your console. She's Coalition, and she's not bluffing. She'll expose you both unless you hand over the drive. I was detained, questioned, but they let me go. Lack of evidence. I'm with you, but you need to decide now." Voss's image vanished as Vax's hologram reasserted itself, but a text message flashed on the console. Asterisk surrender the drive, or I broadcast your treason to the Arkansas. You and the princess are done. Dre. Asterisk Ethan's blood ran cold. Celine was closing the noose, and the Coalition's influence was stronger than he'd feared. Kalara's hand brushed his, a fleeting touch that grounded him. "We can't trust Vax," she said, her voice low, meant only for him. "He's offering half a solution to save face. But if we give up the drive, the Coalition wins, and my people get nothing." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. "We keep the drive, we're fugitives. We give it up, we're at their mercy." He met her eyes, the weight of their kiss in the emergency room lingering, a promise of something worth fighting for. "What's your call?" Kalara's gaze drifted to the drive, then back to him, her resolve hardening. "I need to talk to my mother. If the purists on Eryndor have been lying about the Alliance's offer, I need to know." She activated the console's secure channel, her fingers trembling as she sent a coded message to Queen Lysara, piggybacking on Voss's earlier workaround. The wait was agonizing, the door shuddering as Celine's team burned closer. Ethan checked his pistol's charge, his shoulder screaming, but his focus razor-sharp. The Astra Valaris scent wrapped around him, a reminder of Kalara's strength, her vulnerability, the future they'd glimpsed. A child, a bridge between worlds. The console chimed, and Lysara's voice crackled through, regal but strained. "Kalara, you've risked everything," she said, her tone a mix of pride and fear. "The purists misled me. They claimed the Alliance offered nothing, that we should die pure rather than kneel. But your signal, the drive, it changes everything. If Vax's offer is real, we can save billions. But you must protect yourself. The purest of spies on the Ark, tied to this coalition. Kalara's eyes widened, her hand gripping Ethan's arm. "Mother, can we trust Vax?" she asked, her voice urgent. Lysara's pause was heavy. "No, but you've given us leverage. Use it. Demand more than he offers. And Kalara, come home." The signal cut off, leaving silence. Vax's hologram flickered back, his patience thinning. "Time's up," he said. "The drive, or I let Dre's team take you." Ethan stepped forward, his voice hard. "You want the drive? Guarantee Kalara's safety, full amnesty for Voss, and evacuate all 20 billion. No games, Vax. You need us as much as we need you." Vax's eyes narrowed, but a faint nod betrayed his pragmatism. "Bold, Caldwell. I'll consider it. But Dre's outside, and she doesn't negotiate. Choose fast." Kalara's hand tightened on Ethan's, her blue eyes fierce. "We keep the drive," she whispered. "It's our only leverage. We push Vax, make him blink. For Eryndor. For us." Ethan's heart pounded, the memory of their kiss, her talk of a child, fueling his resolve. He thought of Praxis for, of failing Mara, and knew he couldn't fail Kalara. "We're not giving up," he said, his voice steady. "Vax, you want cooperation? Meet our terms, or we broadcast the drive's data to every ship in the sector. The Alliance's dirty secrets go public." Vax's face darkened, but he didn't speak. The door groaned, sparks flying as Celine's team breached the outer lock. Voss's voice crackled through the calm. "I've got one last trick, rerouting power to jam their torches. It'll buy you minutes. Make them count." Ethan and Kalara stood shoulder to shoulder, the drive between them, their bond a defiant spark against the looming threat. The Astra Valaris scent filled the room, a symbol of hope amid the chaos. They'd stolen the tech, forged a connection, and now faced a choice that could save billions, or cost them everything. As the door buckled, Ethan gripped Kalara's hand, ready to fight for her, for Eryndor, for the future they dared to imagine. The highlands of Eryndor stretched beneath a sky no longer choked by storms, its violet hues deepening as twin suns dipped toward the horizon. Fields of silver grass swayed in a gentle breeze, dotted with the delicate white petals of Astra Valaris flowers, their fragrance carrying the promise of renewal. Alliance shuttles hummed overhead, their sleek forms ferrying billions to safety, while reconstruction crews, human and Eryndorian alike, worked to rebuild shattered cities. The planet's artificial atmosphere, bolstered by the stolen stabilization algorithms, hummed with new life, a testament to the impossible victory Ethan and Kalara had secured. Kalara stood on a balcony overlooking the royal gardens, her indigo skin radiant in the fading light, her moon-white hair flowing freely. Her black diplomat's robe, embroidered with the sigil of House Valaris, marked her new role as Eryndor's voice to the galaxy. Beside her, Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his formal alliance tunic, the silver badge replaced by a simple pin bearing the Astra Valaris emblem. The public spotlight grated on him, his private nature recoiling from the crowds that hailed them as heroes, but Kalara's presence steadied him, her familiar scent grounding him in the moment. "They're calling us the bridge," Kalara said, her voice soft, a faint smile playing on her lips as she gazed at the bustling reconstruction below. Human and Eryndorian, united. It's a lot to carry. Ethan leaned against the railing, his brown eyes tracing the horizon. "I'm no bridge," he said, his tone gruff but warm. "I'm just a guy who couldn't let you go." He glanced at her, the memory of their kiss in the emergency room a quiet fire in his chest. "But you're making this work. Purists, progressives, the Alliance, you're balancing it all." Her smile faltered, her blue eyes clouding with the weight of her duties. "It's not easy." The purists still whisper of sovereignty, of rejecting the Alliance entirely. "Mother's support helps, but I'm walking a tightrope." She paused, her hand resting on her abdomen, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. "And soon it won't just be me." Ethan's heart skipped, the reality of their child, a hybrid, a symbol of hope, settling over him. Medical scans had confirmed it. Perfect genetic harmony, a living testament to Kalra's adaptive DNA. He reached for her hand, his calloused fingers intertwining with hers. "We'll protect them," he said, his voice firm. "No matter what." The confirmation of their child had spread like wildfire, galvanizing Eryndor's progressives and enraging the purists. The Coalition for Galactic Purity, though weakened, still lingered in the shadows, their influence a quiet threat. Lieutenant Celine Dre's exposure as a Coalition operative had been swift. Dr. Alara Voss's intercepted data logs had revealed Dre's communications with high-ranking purists, leading to her demotion and confinement. But Ethan knew the Coalition wasn't gone. Their ideology festered, a potential spark for future conflict. Voss herself had joined Eryndor's reconstruction, her expertise in xenobiology proving invaluable. She'd been honored at a ceremony the previous day, her gray eyes bright with purpose as she accepted a medal from Queen Lysara. "I lost my sister to a dying world," Voss had said, her voice steady. "I won't lose another." Her alliance with Ethan and Kalara had solidified, her quiet determination a reminder of the stakes they'd all faced. Queen Lysara's influence had grown, her pragmatic leadership softening the purest resistance. She'd met Ethan only once, her regal bearing softened by gratitude as she clasped his hand. "You gave my daughter a future," she'd said, her voice thick, "and my people a chance." Her support had tipped the scales, ensuring the Alliance's evacuation of 20 billion proceeded smoothly, a victory Ethan still struggled to believe. He turned to Kalara now, the Astra Valaris sensed stronger as she leaned closer, her warmth a contrast to the cool evening air. "Do you ever think about the Ark?" he asked, his voice low. "The emergency room, the tunnels, it feels like a lifetime ago." She nodded, her eyes distant. "I think about the moment you chose me. Over your oath, your career, everything." Her hand tightened on his. "That's when I knew we could do this. Not just save Eryndor, but build something more." Ethan's throat tightened, the weight of their journey settling over him. The heist, the chase, the kiss, the standoff with Vax. It had all led here, to a planet reborn and a bond unbreakable. He lost his faith in the Alliance long ago, but Kalara had given him something new to believe in. "You're the diplomat," he said, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "I'm just here to keep you out of trouble." Her laugh was soft, melodic, cutting through the evening's quiet. "You're terrible at that," she teased, her eyes sparkling. "But I wouldn't have it any other way." They fell silent, the hum of shuttles and the distant chatter of workers filling the air. Ethan's gaze drifted to the royal gardens below, where a patch of freshly tilled earth caught his eye. Kalara followed his look, her expression softening. "I've been meaning to show you something," she said, leading him down the balcony steps. In the garden, she knelt beside the patch, her fingers brushing the soil with reverence. From her robe, she produced a single Astra Valaris flower, its petals glowing faintly in the dusk. "This is for us," she said, planting it carefully, her hand steady. "For Eryndor, for our child, for everything we've fought for." Ethan knelt beside her, the scent of the flower enveloping them, sharp and hopeful. "It's perfect," he said, his voice rough with emotion. He placed his hand over hers, the soil cool beneath their fingers, and made a silent vow to protect their family, their world, and the fragile harmony they'd built. As they stood, the twin suns sank below the horizon, casting Eryndor in a golden glow. The gardens bloomed, the shuttles soared, and the Astra Valaris stood proud, a symbol of renewal. Ethan and Kalara, human and Eryndorian, soldier and princess, faced the future together, their bond a beacon for a galaxy learning to heal. The Coalition's shadow lingered, but for now, hope outshone it, rooted in the soil of a world reborn.